In the fantasy genre at large, including movies, television, books, and games, death is not the worst thing that can happen to a character. Most fictional heroes would say, I would rather die myself than watch others come to harm, because they are self-sacrificing. But in tabletop role-playing games, we have players, and for many players, death is the worst thing that could happen to their character. There is a role-playing opportunity to explore, well, my character died by getting swatted over the head by an ogre's club, but I did that saving the village, and they're now saved. My character is now gone to the beyond and to their ultimate reward. But I have never once had a player say, no, my character's going to stay dead. It's good. Just leave him dead. I'm ready to move on to my next character now, please. You could make it about a material cost. I've done a video about that. I find it useful to do because it adds verisimilitude to my world. If these things are valuable, then people would have them and hoard them. They'd be in dragon's troves or in treasure vaults for kings. They have them for a reason. The king has it because they are guarding the princess. If the princess dies, we need a way to resurrect her, or else the whole kingdom would fall apart when there is no line of succession. I can't just give this to you adventurers. I'm sorry your friend died, but I can't put the entire kingdom at risk. And no matter what hurdles we put in front of our players, they're going to find a way to jump over those material hurdles. A death should be about more than just a material cost. It should be about why that veil only usually goes one way, why most people don't come back, how difficult of a challenge that is, how changed the person is having done it, and why sometimes maybe it would have been better if they didn't come back at all. A death should also have some sort of a mechanical thing attached to coming back, because if it is just RP flavor text, yes, your character came back with a different alignment and now they glow with a holy light. Cool. Thanks for that flavor text. If we want the characters to care about our lore, even our lore in death, then it needs to have some sort of a mechanical thing attached to it, because mechanics are how we express the realities of our lore. I'm James. I'm a dungeon master. I deal with all the things I plan and plot about for my players in my tabletop role-playing games. If you like that kind of stuff, then there's buttons down there for like and subscribe. If you want to go the extra mile and share this with someone else, I would really appreciate it. Most of the fantasy tabletop advice for dealing with the veil is don't deal with it. Just leave that as a mystery. When the players die, do the resurrection, then just move on. Why? It's not a mystery for the characters in the world. They know that there's an afterlife. It is verifiable in games like DC-20, Draw Steel, Dungeons & Dragons, and Pathfinder, because clerics get spells that allow them to perform miracles. Devils, demons, angels, and archons exist. I know there's an afterlife because Modron. He's right there. I know that I go somewhere after I die because this thing exists. Why not explore that with our players? The games like Dungeons & Dragons and Pathfinder provide a plethora.
Would you say I have a plethora of piñatas? A what?
Of planes to explore with our players. We're not always going to get to them in some sort of planar adventure. So death and the consequences of coming back from these planes and what you might drag with you might be our only opportunity to explore what goes on in the grander world of adventure, which can also anchor some of the questions about why doesn't the wizard or the druid that's level 20 help us? Why are they always sending us out to do their quests? Because they've got bigger problems to deal with over there, like Modron. I call it corruption and purification to align with like the upper planes and the lower planes, Mount Celestia versus the Nine Hells. But for whatever plane that you're coming back from, I could think of a number of effects that are going to apply to you because they should be different from each plane that you're going from. Take something as simple as Greek mythology. Let's say that Hades is sending you back. For whatever reason, Hades would do that. Depending on which plane you're coming back from, Tartarus, Elysium, or Asphodel, you should have a very different type of corruption because those are very different planes. Tartarus, for example, we could just lift the curse of the Black Pearl from the Pirates of the Caribbean movie. Instead of being always undead and looking like mortals during the sun, we're going to say that you are actually mortal during the day. But during the night, you are an undead. You get all the benefits and all the negatives of being an undead. No, you can't be charmed anymore and you don't have to sleep and you don't have to eat. That's great, but you can be turned. And you can't be healed by normal magic anymore. And that means the Dungeon Master is also under some of that control. When is it night outside? How long have the players been in this dungeon? For a person that's coming back from a positive heavenly plane like Elysium, I would look at something like the 7 deadly sins and mark one of them off the list. You can no longer do that. My personal favorite is just lying. Nope, can't lie. Not like Pinocchio. Pinocchio can lie, but his nose grows every time he does it. Our character cannot lie at all, and that might even still seem small to the players. We don't lie that much. Every time they try to lie to a guard, every time they try to negotiate with a merchant and say, we don't have that much gold, or this is worth way more than it is, or they're trying to lie to an evil villain that has them at their mercy and they're trying to get out of it, this person immediately starts vomiting out the truth because they cannot do it anymore. Something about being in Elysium has purified that ability to commit that sin from that character, and now they must tell the truth. Going to Asphodel means that you were not heroic enough to go to Elysium, and you weren't tyrannical enough to go to Tartarus. So you're just kind of a non, and we're representing that with the idea that everyone else in the all of existence, other than the players who were part of the resurrection ceremony, has been affected by not being able to see them as who they were. This person, whoever they were in life, is dead to everyone else, and they're going to continue to see them that way. And when the king or their spouse or their child sees them return back from the afterlife, they will not recognize them. When they try to force that issue, they're going to start to think, maybe that person is a doppelganger, some sort of a demon or something that is trying to trick me into believing that they're my loved one returned from the dead. Now they're going to have to deal with the fact that I got my heartbeat back. I am alive again, but I didn't get my life back. What if after the resurrection they find out that their time on Earth is limited, but they can get more time through some sort of vial or some exalted act? If they are a person that has gone to one of the lower planes, the Abyss, Nine Hells, Carceri, whatever it is, it can be tempting to make their return and what they have to do some sort of a punishment. You were an evil person, you got sent to the evil planes, and if we're going to give you a second chance, you better make good on it. So here's your punishment. Do better. But that's a very Judeo-Christian way of looking at things. And if that's what you're doing with your world, then by all means go right ahead. Most fantasy worlds, though, are more like classical mythology. Greek, Egyptian, Norse, ancient Japanese, ancient Celtic, whatever it is. The gods are pretty petty across the board. And the planes represent a spiritual manifestation of the alignment system.
Hell, on the other hand, is for people who like the other sorts of things. Adultery, pillage, torture.
It's like one of those chat channels where you've done so much trolling and you're such a nasty person and have been reported on so much that they don't ban you. They just slowly siphon you off into a separate chat channel. Now you are just all trolls and they're all trolling each other all the time. Instead, I would make this something that mirrors what the character was kind of doing anyway, but in a way that is going to cause problems for them. Our evil character, for example, a classic evil thing for a person to do to get more life is you consume another human being. Vampires do that. I wouldn't want to make them a full vampire. That's way too much power, and a power gamer is going to go, "The universe is mine to command, to control." But I would do something like a ghoul. Maybe they aren't a ghoul yet. They're still a full mortal, but unless they go out and kill someone and they consume them every 24 hours, every 7 days, whatever is right for your campaign, then they do start turning into a ghoul, complete with the stench, the look, all the bonus powers, and all the negatives. And what is the party going to do about that? What if they're good and they find out what this person has been doing? They've been hunting a serial killer and it turns out it's their party member. What if their friend is now being hunted down by holy crusaders? Are we going to protect him? Do we have to get out of town? What do we do now? For a good character, you could do the same thing, especially with a player that's super into the role play and exploring the nature of good and evil. Let's say that you had a paladin character that was off in the Mount Slushy with Torm or Bahamut or whoever off there, and now they're being returned. They've been ripped away from their ultimate reward because the player wanted the character back, and now they're having to deal with those consequences. Yes, I agree that we need to go deal with Tiamat and the Red Hand of Doom and do that whole adventure, but now I'm having to kill people to extend my life. Is this worth the greater good? Is the greater good actually something I didn't used to believe? An idea of, greater and lesser evils, but maybe if I'm killing all these hobgoblins, conscious beings that were going to bring in Tiamat, then it's okay because I'm trying to stop them. Forcing a lawful good character to confront the gray nature of the universe and either stand by their principles or fall is part of what makes a lawful good character not lawful stupid. Maybe the god that's returning them gives them a totem and says, as long as this is with you, you can continue to exist. It's a little piece of Mount Celestia that comes back with them. Think of it as like a dryad. A dryad typically cannot go beyond a certain distance around their oak tree. But if you took off a cutting of that oak tree and made like a bonsai tree, could they follow that around? That's the same thing with this character. Now they're carrying around this totem, and what happens if the totem dies? Do I go back to Mount Celestia? Am I just going to die here, or do I somehow become a lesser shade? Maybe you allow them to just become a ghost, where they have some powers in the world, but they're very limited in their ability to interact with it until that is somehow rectified by going back to church and being rejuvenated or whatever it is that you decide that would be appropriate for the mythology of your world. That gives them some way to continue to be good, something to worry about, the totem, but also doesn't force them into doing evil things that the player isn't comfortable with. What if opening that veil doesn't open it just for this one person to return, but for something else to come through? You could do demons, devils, angels, archons, fey creatures, whatever you like. What if it's where abominations come from, like mind flayers, beholders, and aboleths? What if every time somebody opens the gate and allows a resurrection to happen, that's where those kind of otherworldly, unnatural things come through from the great dark beyond, and that's how old gods exist in this world? What if they don't come back with the person, but they come back somewhere else, and they are compelled to hunt down the person that was resurrected with them so that they can continue their own life, or they are going to be expelled back into the void? So now the players all know somewhere out there, there might be a mind flayer that is hunting us down so that they can kill our party member so that they can continue to exist. Maybe it will be here, maybe it won't. They're always going to have to deal with that fact wherever they're going. This character can't be alone. As a dungeon master, if you're going to do this, I would also be super clear with the players way before this comes up that this is going to happen, that a resurrection and a raised dead is not as simple as just getting the materials. You're going to have to do that, but there might be additional consequences that you will discover when it happens, but you're absolutely able to resurrect your characters. I would also only do it under certain circumstances. For example, breath of life. I treat that as like CPR or a defibrillator, bringing the character back to life. It's not something I would use this kind of effect for. The spirit was still around enough that it's all fine. And with a wish, I don't do that because I have other effects for a wish, because you are hacking into the nature of the universe, and the gods are not going to be super happy about you doing that. There's going to be other consequences for it. But for like a resurrection and a raised dead, you are bargaining with a god and saying, hey, could you please let my friend back? In my case, the gods would be, at least the good ones, would be very clear about, yeah, I can do that. But there are consequences for this. And in many cases, the gods are pretty clear about, I don't know what the consequences are. I know that this gate is going to swing open, but I am not the only omnipotent being in the universe. Something else may have something to say about this. Until next time, Dungeon Masters, remember you're a player too. Try to have some fun.